Well, you could, of course, put your code in here. Name plus Schwarzmüller, for example. You could put it in here. And if you do that, you avoid this problem. Now Vue is able to see what's getting used here, and it will only update this paragraph and only re-evaluate it if, well, in this case, name changed. And output full name is never called and therefore will never be called by Vue. But now we have more logic in our HTML code, and that's again not good, as you learned. So there is a third nice feature we can use: computed properties. Computed properties are essentially like methods with one important difference. Vue will be aware of their dependencies and only re-execute them if one of the dependencies changed. Computed is the third big configuration option we learn about for the app we created. The first one was data, the second one was methods, the third one is computed. You can add it anywhere in this config object. Here I will add it between data and methods, but the position doesn't matter. So you add computed here, and just like methods and data, this is not a name you can choose. That is a name you have to use because it's one of the key options supported by Vue in Vue apps. Computed, like methods, wants an object. So you pass an object as a value to computed. And now in computed, you define a bunch of methods, just like in methods. But the methods you define in computed will be called and executed differently. That's why we have these two different blocks. So here we could add a full name method, and I'm naming it full name and not output full name, even though I could, because that name is up to you. But I'm naming it like this because we're going to use this like a data property, not like a method. Even though technically it is a method, but we're not going to use it as such, we're not going to call it, and therefore you should name your computed properties just as you would name your data properties. And now in here, we want to return the value that eventually should be yielded by that computed property. And there I'll just copy the exact same code I had in my output full name method. So I'll copy that code and put that in there. And now, as I mentioned, we can use this full name computed property in our HTML code like this. And that's important. Not like this, without parentheses. You don't call it. You just point at it and Vue will call it for you. We use it just like we use data properties like the counter here. And that's why we should also name our computed properties like data properties, because we use them like properties, like variables. We don't use them like functions. So full name here will be connected to this full name computed property. So the name, of course, has to be equal. And now Vue will execute this for you. It will basically check if there is a full name data property. And if there isn't, it will check if there maybe is a computed property with that name. And if that's the case, it will execute it. And hence, if I save this here and reload, we see nothing here initially. But as soon as I start typing, we see the full name show up again. So we got the same behavior as before, but now with one important difference. Let's check the developer tools again. In there, if I reload, you will notice running again once initially. Of course, because it needs to evaluate the value returned by full name when the app is first rendered to the screen. But now, if I clear that, if I change my counter, we don't see running again. And keep in mind that with a method, we did see it, but now that's no longer the case. We only see it if we type here, which makes a lot of sense because here we really change something that's being used in that computed property. We change the name with every keystroke. So with computed properties, Vue is aware of the dependencies of the computed properties. So in this case, that name is a dependency, and it will cache the computed property value and only recalculate and reevaluate it if one of the dependencies, in this case the only dependency we have, the name property, changed. And that's the key difference. For performance, it's better to use computed properties than methods for outputting values. In most cases, only use methods if you know that you want to recalculate a value whenever anything on the page changed. In most scenarios, that will not be the case. You only want to recalculate a value if a dependency changed, and that's when computed properties shine. You still need methods, either because you have something that you really want to re-execute whenever anything changed, or more often, because you have events and you want to trigger certain methods when an event occurs. That does not change. You still bind your events to methods. You don't bind events to computed properties. You really only use computed properties for outputting something, like here, the full name.